Booyah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Boy, do I have a doozy for you today. Mark Garretson. We haven't talked about Mark Garretson in a while, the good old clown of the Liberal Party, moving forward in the House of Commons. Oh, I might not be able to call him a clown for much longer because he's putting a motion forward in the House of Commons because some words seem to hurt his feelings, ladies and gentlemen, and this is part of what makes this such a funny video. Is imagine being so weak in life that mere words cause you to break down and destroy your general nature of moving along in the real world, that it affects you to that kind of a degree. It's weak. Now, Mark Garretson, of course, calling out many MPs in the House of Commons because, well, he doesn't want politicians or anyone to refer to Justin Trudeau as corrupt. You heard that right. He doesn't like people using the word corrupt against Justin Trudeau. Now, I'm going to make a case for Mark Garretson here. Let's try and understand why he might feel that way, but also why that's not going to happen, let's be honest, and why this is just deflection and oversensitivity. Of course, this article coming from the Counter Signal saying Liberals want to ban calling Trudeau corrupt. Now, this doesn't just extend to the House of Commons. This is on social media platforms. This is in general speak. It could be counted as hate speech. And this is, again, censorship of a dictatorship. This is saying you're only allowed to say nice things about, oh, mighty leader, Captain Socks, and his non-corrupt ways of doing business. I mean, this is laughable. Free speech isn't doing too well in Canada. On Friday, in response to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his government being called corrupt repeatedly over their many, many scandals and ethics violations, rather than reflecting on the state of their party and activities they engage in, Liberal MP and Deputy House Leader Mark Garretson instead asked the Speaker of the House to consider a ban on the word. Yikes! Oh, my point is that today, during question period, the member for Regina, Wascana, referred to the Prime Minister as corrupt and the government as corrupt. Although he did it today, it has been done a number of times in the House. I would say that that terminology specifically goes against Standing Order 18, Garretson said. This is laughable at best. Just, oh, these words hurt my feelings. Please, Mr. Garretson, please explain to me how people have faith in their government these days, how anybody doesn't believe that their government isn't corrupt. This is a light term that we should be using for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. At this point, Garretson was interrupted with the Conservatives yelling debate, an offer which Garretson rejected. Standing Order 18 states that no member of Parliament shall speak disrespectfully of the sovereign, royal family, Governor-General, and other members of Parliament, or the person administering the Government of Canada, i.e. the Prime Minister. In other words, MPs should try to keep decorum and can't falsely slander someone. However, there's nothing in there about saying something about someone that is undeniably true. Madam Speaker, quote, I would ask that you reflect on and include in your deliberations and reporting back to the House whether or not the word corrupt in reference to an individual or the government is appropriate, Garretson said. To this, Conservative MP Corey Thatcher stated the obvious, that Trudeau and the Liberals have been caught time and time again engaging in corrupt activities. Madam Speaker, if you ask the ethics commissioners about all the infractions that the Prime Minister has been charged and convicted with on corruption, you will find the truth to be that this is a corrupt government. And Prime Minister Thatcher said, again, very factual. There's no reason not to buy into that or not to agree with that. Conservative MP Brendan Leslie added, Madam Speaker, I would like to add that as a move forward in your deliberations on this, given we had a historic event happen earlier this week with historic corruption once again in this country, combined with the numerous ethics violations, corruption is the appropriate word for the Prime Minister. The Speaker concluded that saying this would be taken into consideration, but not issue a ban referring to Trudeau as corrupt. Now, what's funny about this and what really gets into it is, let's take a look at why anybody might think that this government's a little corrupt, shall we? Now, I know people don't like listening to Justin Trudeau. I don't have any Justin Trudeau clips in this entire segment, but who I do have is the, well, we have a few Liberal MPs, but mostly the Wicked Witch of the WEF once again, Christy Freeland, because boy, does she make some good points that need to be not only acknowledged, but put in the column of government corruption, and why, most importantly, voters might feel they can't trust their government or that they have a corrupt government. Wiretap Media, great account to follow on Twitter, by the way. Shout out to them. Go give them a follow. Economic experts are calling BS on Trudeau government in 2024 budget. Vashi Kapelos catching small business minister Richie Valdez spreading disinformation to Canadians. On April 21st, 2024, Trudeau's unqualified suspected criminal associate Rachel claimed that interest rates were at an all-time high. We're going to get into the clip. I don't want to explain too much because, well, she does it in the video. Watch for the lies, ladies and gentlemen.
Actually, on top of the inclusion rate there that I mentioned earlier, it's an additional $2 million on top of that at an inclusion rate of 33.3%. That's really to spur and incent innovation for small SMEs across the country.
So if this policy and the suite of policies that you've introduced are designed to do that, as you say, incent innovation and grow the economy, why are so many groups who represent people who do that so critical of what you've done? And I'll point you, Minister, to a few examples. The Canadian Council of Innovators, for example, says those folks who join startups and scale-ups as they're beginning their journey are provided stock options and other benefits, which are ultimately determined as capital gains in the future. It's marketing experts, sales experts, legal experts that are traditionally mid-career that you're completely undermining by this type of policy lever that's being implemented. The Canadian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association says this measure, which effectively taxes innovation and risk-taking, will significantly dampen Canada's entrepreneurial spirit, stifle economic growth in critical sectors of our economy, and impact job creation. Why do they think that if you're contending the opposite?
Canada has a very competitive environment. Canadian small businesses have the lowest marginal effective tax rate in the G7. And if you compare us to the US, all 100% of capital gains in the US is being charged to corporations. Here in Canada, we believe in encouraging and incentivizing innovation. We've done that through our additional measure of investing in artificial intelligence of $2 billion, $200 million of which are going directly to help AI, specifically to support startups.
And I certainly wouldn't take away from that announcement and the focus on AI. But when you talk about, for example, the marginal tax rate, this change to the capital tax regime actually increases our marginal tax rate relative to other countries. We were kind of in the middle of the pack, and this, when it comes into effect, will bring us to the top. And on the issue of spurring innovation, I mean, we have a terrible record on productivity. The Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada just weeks ago said it was an emergency situation wherein the glass needs to be broken. Do you really feel that what you're talking about addresses that issue? Because again, those people who are responsible for innovation in this country say it does the opposite.
So what's happened there is essentially more filibustering from the Liberals. We all know that it happens, but again, I give it to Vashi because I think that she's a fantastic reporter, despite the fact that she works for a mainstream prostitute outlet. This is one journalist that isn't afraid to ask questions from time to time, and I can respect that. I do respect that. I like listening to clips where she's involved. Again, go look at our previous video with Christy Freeland, sitting down with her about the budget. I think, again, she does a good job putting her foot down, but again, catches the Liberals in their lies. So if they're going to sit in interviews and they're going to talk about interest rates being at lows and Canada having a competitive market, which of course we don't, this is essentially the capital gains tax is going to push investment out of Canada. It's going to lower stock options for people in Canada. And our interest rate climbing is one of the highest right now in the G7s. More corruption. And I want to show this video. And again, this isn't too... It's a little off topic, but at the same time shows where the government doesn't work for Canadians. We have this video here of somebody who's come here to be a student in Canada, and we've talked about this to great degree on the channel. I've mentioned multiple times the issues with people coming to this country that are supposed to have prerequisites when it comes to how much money they're supposed to have to support themselves. There's regulations for university students. I feel at any time if university students that are coming from other countries aren't submitting receipts or audits in similar comparison to how we do with our taxes, they should be asked to leave and go to school somewhere else, because this here, when we have 30 million Canadians struggling, this is roughly 2.5 million of those Canadians, by the way, going to food banks. This is disturbing.
This is how I save hundreds of bucks every month in food and grocery.
All these groceries for this week I got free. This is for everyone, all the students. They even have hot food at our university.
यहाँ पे most of the universities and colleges में food banks होते हैं, which are run by trusts, churches या फिर non-profit organizations. Let me show you what I got this week.
You can take as much as you want. सारे basic fruits and vegetables, bread, sauces, pastas and canned vegetables, which is subject to availability.
This has been very helpful to me as a student. Check with your seniors or university websites and you'll get the location of the food banks.
Go and get the locations of these food banks. Check with your representatives. So you can go and get, and what I saw there wasn't exactly cheap. There was a dressing, I guess you could call it, that typically you put on hamburgers or sandwiches that runs roughly $7 a jar. We seen a loaf of bread/buns in there. Multiple other fruit. I don't know about you guys, but the last time I checked, fruit was one of the most expensive items for me to purchase at the grocery store, next to poultry or beef. But to get free groceries while you're going to school, oh, this saves me hundreds of dollars a week. Aren't you supposed to have a set amount of money to take care of yourself when you come here for schooling? This, again, is a lack of enforcement from our government. But we go back to the Wicked Witch of the WEF, and you can even see her gaslighting this reporter on Global. And kudos to the reporter, because you can see her frustrated even from this freeze frame. You can tell she's done, but she almost does like a half face palm just having to listen to Christy Freeland. But let's get into. And, well, it's going to speak for itself.
I just wanted to raise one thing with you. You know, your critics say that the Liberals are good at addition, not so good at subtraction.
I just want to cut in really quick and point out there is a lot of backyard or background noise going on here with Christy Freeland, and I apologize for that. Again, this was right after the budget was announced, and we saw that with my last video covering Christy Freeland with Vashi, where there was a lot of talking going on in the background. I believe this was kind of like a press scrum after the announcement of the budget. So again, I apologize. There was no way to get that background noise out, but let's listen to what's said here.
That right now the cost of servicing the debt in Canada is $46 billion in 2023-24. That's more than I think what is spent on the Canada Health Transfer. Your critics say spending measures on top of that are reckless. What do you say to them?
Well, I say actually that is economically illiterate and completely ignoring the international comparatives. You know, there are some issues where you can have a partisan discussion and you can have different values. Whether a woman has a right to choose or not, there's a real partisan debate. Whether you believe in gun control, a real partisan debate. But it is just a fact, an economic fact, that Canada today has the most fiscally responsible policy in the entire G7.
If we have the most fiscally responsible policy in the entire G7, this planet is in a ton of trouble. Countries are going to be going bankrupt, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. I don't know what people would think about their government not being corrupt after watching this. This is corruption at its finest. I'm not going to answer real questions. I'm not going to give you the facts. I'm not going to say that we've dropped the ball in certain places. I'm going to talk about a bunch of blatant lies and gaslight in order to get my point across so I can get up, get the hell out of here, and go charge my $7,000 a month for personal trainers and day spas. If you want to know what a real leader looks like, a fiscally responsible, financially responsible leader, look no further than Pierre Poilievre, because he was asked what he was going to do for this country in terms of spending. He doesn't talk about capital gains taxes. He doesn't talk about raising taxes on the middle class. He talks about things Canada actually...
And we will cut back on foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and multinational bureaucracies, and we will put that money right back into rebuilding our military so that our soldiers, our sailors, and airmen can stand on guard for all of us. We're going to defund all the terrorist groups and all the international dictators. We're going to bring our money home for our people and stand up for our people and stand up against the dictators in Venezuela. They're going to be selling less oil because we're going to be selling good, ethical Canadian products onto the world market. Libertad. Some people here from Venezuela. And
what to take from that is this is what a leader looks like. He recognized, now while I'm not going to say that Pierre's going to do everything perfect, we all know that he's going to make mistakes. We know he's going to have slip-ups, but what he recognizes is that Canada is vastly well endowed with oil and gas, that it is a part of our economy, and that in order for our deficit to be handled, in order for fiscally responsible management in our country, we have to accept that in this current climate, oil and gas is a necessity. And Canada, namely Alberta, once again, has the cleanest practices in the world for getting that out of the ground, for making sure that people are using it properly. We should be sending that information to other countries and touting from the rooftops that rather than getting on the Paris Accords, you guys should be fracking oil in places like Saudi Arabia, all across the world in oil hot pockets under Canada's clean, ethical guidelines for fracking, for refining bitumen, you name it. This is how an economy works. But what's most important out of this entire statement that Pierre Poilievre says is that we're going to look after Canada first. We're not going to be sending billions to the Ukraine. We're not sending money overseas to other countries that are in need of support. I'm not saying that it's not good to do those things, but when your own country is in a bit of a stalemate and suffering, you have to look after each other's first. Now, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Let me know if you agree with me, especially when it comes to the student end of things. I feel like that adds to the corruption of the government. Again, I personally feel students that come from overseas should face auditing systems similar to what is necessary when we file our taxes. They should be able to produce receipts showing where they've spent money, or at least bank statements showing that they're not taking advantage of our system, to show that they're not taking out of food banks for Canadians that actually need those services versus students who want to come here and put their feet up and use their money to buy the latest iPhone rather than taking care of their needs and costs. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Again, if it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're clicking that subscribe button to hit the bell and join us for notifications here on the channel every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central for Friday Night Fringe, where we go over topics like this and have a little bit of back and forth with the community. It's always great to talk to you guys outside of making these videos and hear what you guys have to say. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you every Friday night. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.